Hello everyone, this is Steven from New Game Plus, and today I'm here talking to you about Toren. This is a game that I actually just found out about today. I read briefly, I checked out a headline that said it was kind of a mishmash of Zelda, Ico, Shadow of the Colossus. And if I'm going to be completely honest with you, very misleading. I would say out of all of those games, I suppose it has the most in common with Ico. You know, you are kind of just wandering around an area, although to compare it to Ico, wow, there's just not much actually similar with Ico. I think it's going tonally for something like Ico. It is trying to tell a story. It's very vaguely telling a story, but the story is just extremely obtuse and has a lot of very specific details that end up not actually meaning anything, as far as I can tell. There, for instance, there seems to be a lot of emphasis placed on this scroll. Really has nothing going on. And that portion was actually gameplay. I don't know why. You don't really do anything aside from move forward. This is also gameplay. And as you can see, you play as this character who tends to jump back and forth in time. You know, you kind of started as an adult, but then you play, I don't know if this is an ancestor or anything, you know, whatever, but you're suddenly a child. You will see the child then very quickly become, you know, a young girl, then perhaps a teenager, and then a young adult. And yeah, see here we've already transformed. I'm not kidding. This is the first, you know, 3 or so minutes of the game. I've actually trimmed out a lot of fat. And actually, that's a really good point that I'd like to bring up regarding Toren. Is there is a whole lot of fat in this game, and it's really concerning because the game is only about an hour and a half long. I was really shocked. I actually intended to just play a little bit of the game. Just give you some of my impressions, just to see if anyone should or would be interested in playing it, and I accidentally finished the game. I really did not intend to do that. It is just that short. It is easily one of the shortest games I've ever played, and I typically don't have much of a problem with short games. It just depends on what they deliver, but Toren really doesn't have a lot to deliver. Here is actually one of the first portions where you're kind of given pseudo freedom. You are still very much guided in one direction. You can kind of choose to go left or right at certain points, but there's really pretty much one path for you to go on. The game, like I said, very, very, very short, and there's just a whole lot of fat going on, a whole lot of nonsense going on with the story. I truly think that developers were trying to tell some sort of a story, but it's really just not panning out that well. It's very obtuse and convoluted, and it ultimately just doesn't make any sense. Maybe to me, maybe my head's too fucking fat to understand what's going on here, but something about a girl and a sword and a knight and a mage and a tree, and who knows. That's not to say the game doesn't have anything going for it. You know, portions like this I thought were like kind of interesting, actually. I mean, there's like, you get the feeling that there's something going on, but really you find out that it's just horseshit. Spoiler alert, this game goes nowhere. But one thing that I can absolutely say is a positive about the game is just the art direction is splendid. It's not a pretty game, technically speaking, very low poly. You know, the engine is just, it is just not good. Like, it's almost as if they decided to make it a game very late, you know, like halfway into trying to tell this pseudo story, and they, you know, they just needed more time. But, you know, maybe it gets away with it because there's ultimately not that much going on. They really just wanted to tell the story, and maybe they just decided to do gameplay at an extreme minimum to try and communicate this message they were trying to send, but who knows, I don't think they were very successful in that. This is one of the weird decisions that they made. They've locked the camera to the player's back there, so you could see it was all jetting about. You have a couple fights with this dragon, and there's some of the more interesting portions. Actually, there's not terrible ideas being executed as far as design and interesting fights go. But you know, as far as the quote-unquote combat, this is about it. It's very, very limited. You know, there's not really much going on here. Ultimately, as far as Toren goes, the most I can say is it is beautiful in its art direction. Technically, there's a lot of glitches. In the brief time I had with it, I encountered a game-breaking glitch. I had to reload my checkpoint. I couldn't move. My character fell through the world several times. Just the loose controls caused me to die several times. I think that this game really could have just used some polish. But I mean, overall, there's just not a lot of substance here. At least to somebody who I have no idea if you know, there's a basis for this story somewhere. If this is a weird retelling of something, I just have no idea. I have no grounds. I have no reference point for anything that's going on. And I think the developers are really trying to say something with their story, but it just went nowhere. So ultimately, I have a really hard time recommending Toren to anyone. It is very cheap. I can predict that it will be very, very cheap, even cheaper very soon. I got it for less than $10. And so I guess if this is interesting to you at all, I guess you can keep an eye out. I'm playing this on the PlayStation 4. I really don't see myself going back at all, but I mean, there is something to appreciate with, you know, the art direction. And the sound isn't bad, but that's almost everything. So maybe I'll get back to you sometime with some new reviews on some smaller games like this. But yeah, maybe think twice before you check out Toren. Okay, everyone, this has been New Game Plus. Thank you so much for your time. Take care.